The Black Cat Lounge is sponsored by Paranormal Oddities, the little store with the big heart, Niagara at the Western Block, one of the top-rated haunted destinations in Western New York, Dragonfly Art and Soul, metaphysical goods and classes, Mystery Control, your go-to feed for science, magic, true crime, paranormal, and much, much more. Hey everybody, this is Tim Shaw. Welcome to the Black Cat Lounge. We got a great show for you tonight. Before we start, I got to ask you guys, if I was to, let's say, put on a small event, maybe in the fall, what would you guys want to do? Just a small event, nothing big, no huge names, what would you guys want to see? Who would you like to see? What topics? Do you want a ghost hunt? Let me know. Write in Black Cat Lounge 1@yahoo.com. Just let me know. Because I'm thinking about putting something together that just might be fun, and that's what we're looking for. Anyway, got a great show for you tonight. A great guy is going to be on. Of course, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna butter him up because he loves that so much. He is probably he's already making me laugh. You know what? He's a noted speaker, media personality. He's he follows a long tradition of storytelling. This is something that I love. I mean, I grew up on the stories of Mark Twain and so many other phenomenal storytellers that, this guy is just one of these people that I could sit and listen to. I try not to, of course, but I try and listen to him. He's an author. He's written over a dozen books. He has a phenomenal show. It's a Emmy nominated, an award-winning show called, of course, New England Legends. He's a host of the New England Legends podcast. He's written for newspapers like the Boston Globe, USA Today. He's been working on TV shows like Ghost Adventures, a Paranormal Challenge. Oh my God. One of my favorites. And, a lot of people kind of miss this one, but Amish Haunting. It's I guess maybe because of the fact that I've had a lot of interactions with some Amish over the years that I went and I really loved this show. And I don't think it ever got its due. I don't think it ever got a true chance on TV. He is like unbelievable. He's been instrumental in one of my favorite shock docs. Now, I've worked with guys like Steve Shippey on shock docs and stuff like that. It's called The Devil Made Me Do It. And you can see it on Discovery Plus. And it is the basis for Ed and Lorraine Warren's, one of the cases that inspired the Conjuring 3 movie, of course. And Jeff is a true Renaissance man. And I like, what? I don't say Renaissance man very, very flippantly. And the reason why I don't say it like that is because I really, truly mean it. This is a guy that puts his whole being where his intention is. He went and he scaled Mount Kilimanjaro for charity. And I know we did a show on it, but if you guys ever get a chance to read his book, it's called The Call of Kilimanjaro. If you guys get a chance to go and hear him speak on it, it'll change your life. It'll change your life. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of, questionable ages, let's bring on one of the most fun people that I know. Really a great guy, talented beyond compare, devilishly handsome, and He's got so much more hair than me. Jeff Belanger. Jeff, welcome to the Black Cat Lounge. Welcome back. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule. Dude, you are like, not only are you all over the place, but you've got 1,001 irons in the fire. What are you, I mean, how can you handle all of this?
So, unlike a lot of people in the paranormal, I don't have a day job. This is all I got. So I find if you do like everything all the time, you can somehow eke out a living. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I would, well, you know what? I don't have a day job,
Well, right, because you're retired.
but I'm not eking out a living. Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. It's because I'm not as talented as you, by the way.
Oh, come on. You know what? No, honestly, I think first of all, I love this stuff. I truly do. You can't go at it with this much force
Yeah,
and not love it. So I love the
you're right
stories. I
about
love the
that.
people, the oddballs that you meet along the way, the Tim Shaws of the world, the people that,
Wait a
yeah,
minute. That's for
yeah,
you, baby. That's for you. That's for you.
it's adorable. So you know what I mean? I love the stuff. I love the subject, and I've learned a lot about myself. And not only that, I was having this conversation with our buddy Dave Schrader not that long ago, and I said, it occurred to me not that pretty recently. I said, oh no, I'm not qualified to do anything else at this point. So, what I mean? So if this ended tomorrow, I mean, I don't know. I'm digging ditches, I guess.
You know what? I can teach you. I can teach you. I've got experience and I have an extra shovel. So we're all set there.
True story.
Yeah,
My first job in high school, I built patios and walkways, which was digging ditches, right?
basically, yes.
No joke. I loved it. I loved it. I loved that there was nothing there. And then you put in this beautiful thing that was functional and good to look at, and it was going to last for years and years to come. And I absolutely love that work. It was so satisfying.
But you know
And
what?
in fact, a couple of years ago, I got to build a patio behind my house, a brick patio. I did it myself. I did everything. Well, I had an excavator because it was more dirt than I cared to dig out, but I did the rest,
Smart
and it
man.
was
Smart
cool.
man.
And yeah.
I've wheelbarrowed. I've wheelbarrowed. It's not fun.
So what was funny is that it didn't look like much of a hill, but the guy hauled away like 4 trucks. And you're like, oh, that would have killed me. I literally would have died.
Easy. Easy. Well, you know what? Doing that is sort of like writing. Starting off with that blank screen, starting off with that
Yeah.
blank paper, and then creating, and then having something that will last for years. And you know what? I don't say it again. I don't say it flippantly because of the fact that your books are phenomenal. I mean, I get a chance to speak to a lot of authors over the years. Dacker Stoker, I adore his work. I just had him on the show, but I have to say that you know what, in this particular field, I think you excel far more than almost anybody else, and I don't say that easily. And
Well,
it's
thanks.
just a great thing. And again, I'm sucking up to you because I'll probably see you someplace along the line here.
Right.
I'm not quite sure where we're going to run into each other, but it's
Somewhere.
always somewhere.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, no, I like the process of it too. I used to write books just I'm not saying I churned them out, but like I really had to get my flag in the ground. And so there was a lot of,
Mhm.
a lot of endless work. And then I didn't write any books for years. I was working on Ghost
Really?
Adventures. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I
The
didn't know
last book
that.
I had written was probably like 2012. And then
Wow.
I went like 8 years without writing any books. I was working on Ghost Adventures. I was working on my TV show. I was working on my podcast. I was doing other stuff. I didn't stop. I just didn't write books. And then I wrote the Kilimanjaro memoir. And that was the hardest thing I've ever written. I can write other people's stories all day long, but when you write about yourself and your life, it's really hard to be objective. But that book made me fall in love with writing books again. I was like, oh, I do like this. I like this thing. And then I did the Christmas book that came out last year. I
Phenomenal.
was on your show for that. So
Phenomenal.
that
Phenomenal.
was fun. And that was fun to write. You know what I mean? Like the whole process was fun. It didn't feel like work. And because my last memory of writing a book was not only was it a lot of work, it wasn't a lot of fun, and I was getting ripped off by the publisher. True story. Don't care
Yeah.
for listening. I
Yeah.
remember. So, so it was all just a big old like ball of negativity, and
Mhm.
I was happy to be rid of it. And then started working with a new publisher, and then went, oh, and everything was just sort of like a joy again. And I'm I'm older than I may look, but I don't have time to do stuff that's just going to make me miserable. I
You
don't have
know,
time for it.
exactly.
Yeah,
Jeff, well, you're going to be 50, right?
50 soon. Yeah,
Wow. We've known each other probably what, 2 decades at least.
probably. Yeah.
I can't believe that because, of course, I can't believe I'll be 67 this year. So it's like I think we're both in that same boat. But it's funny. People don't realize exactly, you know, when we have a publisher and working with a publisher, and you start seeing diminished returns after working with some publishers. And it's heartbreaking because you've poured your own heart and soul into this work, and the returns are just minimal. And also then they, of course, I mean, I don't have to tell you about, they don't go and they don't push your book to be in, major retail stores. They don't push your book anywhere. They don't look for you to get any kind of interviews. But I'm so happy that you were able to go and find someone who really loves what you're doing. And the Kilimanjaro book, Jeff, I have to tell you, that is like, first of all, it's heart-wrenching. It is great. That's one of those books that when you read it, you almost can't put it down because you're known for one genre totally. You really are. And it's not that you're pigeonholed, but I mean, you're known for that genre.
I am.
But you ripped I know the feeling. I just had this conversation at a church not too long ago.
Yeah.
But you actually opened up your life. You opened up your heart to it, and being so self-reflective in that book was amazing. It was probably one of those projects that had to be to relive it, to be able to go back to journals and relive it had to be amazing. Did you feel that sometimes you just like stepped into, like the Twilight Zone, and then you were overcritical of what you wrote?
Well, so I wrote that book in like 9 drafts, right? It was like nine.
Well,
I
that's not
didn't.
bad.
I usually
Wow.
do. I usually try to keep it to 3. 3 is very reasonable to me. First
Oh
is like
my
messy,
God.
and the second you clean it up, and the third is refining, and that usually does it. But 9, ugh. So anyway, hi Joanne.
I do 12. I'm not gonna lie. I do 12.
Yeah, no,
Easily.
so it was one of those things where like if you told me a story about something you experienced, I can be a good I can edit you well. I can be like, this is the important part. This
Right.
is kind of extraneous. Let's talk more about that. Like I'm a pretty good editor because I've done this a long time. But
Yeah.
when it comes to yourself, it all felt important. But it's not. Like I know that. I mean, I know as a human being and as a writer, like not every part of my life is exciting. It just isn't. And I don't need to bore you with it. So writing a memoir was really tricky. I'd like to do another one someday. I don't know what yet. I mean, and I don't know when. I mean, this could be 10 years from now, but it's also it's one of those things where it's an exorcism, right? I mean, that's to me, that's what writing a book
It
now
is.
is purely an exorcism for me. Whatever book I'm working on, there's something in there and it won't leave me alone. And if I keep ignoring it, then it haunts me. And if I still ignore it, well, now we need an exorcism. There's no other way to get this thing out and get this demon off my back than to put it down on paper and like
It's
just
true.
release it out in the world and hope it doesn't hurt anybody.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Only once did I ever do a book where I was able to go and I wrote the actual book in 7 days,
Yeah.
but it was like 2.5 years of research and then false starts and just but it was torture. It
Yeah.
was torture. And to be able to go and be able to self-reflect upon what you experience and be able to go and get those highlights in that, or that that people are going to go and they're going to grab. And that to me has always been like fascinating. But you've always got the knack for it. You always have. And when you speak, I got to tell you what, you're one of the best speakers in the business, because I don't know if you have that sixth sense of being able to go and pick up what every individual audience wants to hear. Because I've heard you speak on the same subject, let's say like 3 times, 4 times, the same subject. Everyone is different. which is like amazing to me because I don't know how many people do the same spiel every time, but every time is different. Every angle is different. Your hook is different. It's almost as if you can read that individual audience. Did you ever notice that you do that?
Oh yeah. No, and by the way, that's just experience. That's just years and years of doing this. And also, I try my best to live as honestly as I can. And that started with the memoir. Like, if you know,
Mhm.
years back when I was working on the memoir, I'm like, if you're gonna do this right, you need to just be naked. Like, there's no other
True.
way,
True.
right? You got to just be that vulnerable and naked and honest. Because first of all, people spot a fake a mile off,
Yes, they
and
do.
and
You're right
and
about
and,
that.
and there's nothing worse. And I have no persona. Like, I can be on, right, where I'm, up a level, but it's not a persona. It's just me on, and I love the energy of a room. And when you bring a story to an audience, you're having an experience together. And it's
Right.
ridiculous to think of it any other way. Like, to think of it as you're broadcasting and they're receiving. No, you're in this together. And there's a give and a take, and you're having a moment. And if you read it right, you can take things in a direction you didn't plan on. But it's a wonderful direction. It's a good thing when this audience and you connect, and it's so intimate. I always think, whenever I'm working on a book, when I'm doing my podcast, when I'm doing a talk, especially when I'm doing a talk, I only ever think about talking to one person. It's
Correct.
too
Yes.
overwhelming to think about like writing a book for like thousands of people. Like, no, I'm writing a book for one person in mind, as if I'm sitting down and telling it to that one single person. And if that goes well, everybody feels like they're the person. They're the person that I'm talking
It's
to,
amazing.
whether you're on a stage or on a
Amazing.
podcast, or, like in my podcast, I really try. We might have slipped up once or twice over the years, but try to never say like, "Hey guys, hey everybody," because they're not the collective. It's just me and my co-host and you, and that's it. That's all who's with us right now. And when you think in those terms, you are going to have a conversation, just like if it was like right now. I'm trying to have a
Mhm.
conversation with you and one other person listening. And they might
Correct.
jump in with questions or whatever, but that's all that matters, because that's it. That's all we can do. It's too big to try to. I can't get my head around more than that. So if we just focus on that, and if we just be honest and forthright and just be who we are, don't be afraid to say you don't know. I don't know a million things, right? The longer I've
Oh
done
my
this, the
God,
less I
yes.
know.
Isn't that it's so true. And that's something that, I try never to do. I try never to go and like make something up. You go and because people know when you're
Yeah,
doing a double talk. Why do it? Just admit that you don't know and say, listen, but I do know people that will know. So if I'll get back to you,
sure. Yeah.
people miss that. And I don't know if it's something that people are afraid, if they're afraid to like look stupid.
Oh,
I
I
don't.
stopped. I wasn't afraid of that long ago. I gave
Yeah, I
that up.
know.
Yeah. Think what you will. I mean,
Exactly.
I used to, like 20 years ago when I first started, talking about the paranormal and giving talks and things like that. I knew way more then than I do now. It's been, if you plotted it on a graph, it would be a ski slope down. I'd be like, oh, I got all the answers. And now I'm like, oh, no, I have none of the answers, but I'm in a much more comfortable place about it. I'm very okay with that.
Yeah.
And we live in a time, right, where everybody is so hung up on I'm trying to make everything black and white. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Correct.
What team are
Correct.
you on? Politics. What team are you on? What with sports? Where do you stand on every little thing? And if you can embrace the gray area, I promise you will be a happier person. If you can just say like, hey, like, okay, today I might know one thing, but new information could come in tomorrow, and I could move my position on that. If you can embrace the gray area, then you're just gonna you're not swimming against the tide all the time. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And you know what? To be fluid means that you're open to evolution. And that's the one thing, I mean, what I do.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I have learned over all these years is that you have to evolve and you keep evolving and your passions evolve and your experiences teach you how to, face certain things and how to, tackle these problems. And by evolving and being fluid, you're able then to go and be able to be honest and to be that person that's down to earth and be that person that people want to be able to go and talk to, or interview or read your
or
articles or
or
books.
buy a beer, or buy that person a beer. I don't turn those down.
I'm trying to think. I don't think I ever bought you a beer.
And this is why we're not friends.
Wow. Ouch. You know what? When we go up to Sault Ste. Marie,
All right. They're cheap there. You're getting off easy, but
you
okay.
got that right. There's a reason why I wait for that. What do you think? What do you think? I'm crazy? I'm not
No.
going to go. I'm not going to go with those lower Michigan prices. I'm going up to the res.
Yeah. Yeah. No, nice cheap beer up there for sure. No, I appreciate that. No, you're right. And I think but the connection is the thing that matters the most, and that's one thing that, the longer I've done this, the more I'm more focused on, what are the connections, how does a story, and when I say story, I don't mean fiction. I just
Right.
mean
Right.
everything's a story, right? Like
Right.
you going into a haunted building and having an experience, there's a story that comes out of that. And like, how does that story connect to me, to connect to the place, connect to history, connect with others? Because the more I've shared these strange things that I've sort of collected over the decades, the more people find themselves in it. And it's a really cool thing. Like when someone comes up after and goes, I had an experience just like that, but at this other place, but I relate to that. And that's such a cool experience when someone makes that connection and they realize they're not alone. They're not
Yes.
crazy.
Yes.
They had something else.
Well,
They had something
well,
happen.
well, Jeff,
Wow.
some of the people that we have run into over the years, they are on the fringe.
Sure, but I get
But
that.
yeah,
And by the way, and that's I always struggle when, like, someone who's going to take a skeptical position, where,
yes.
and let me rephrase that, an atheistic position, like a rock solid, I have a belief system that is anti everything you're saying,
Mhm.
right? Therefore, you must be wrong, right?
Right.
And so they point out, like, well, this person's got, multiple personality disorder. Yeah, I hear you. And it doesn't mean that the voices in their head aren't necessarily something that aren't real, or at least real to them.
Exactly. I
Um,
agree. I agree.
so just because I'm not experiencing it doesn't make it false. And just because you can't hear those voices that they hear doesn't mean it's false. It's absolutely their reality. And if you think otherwise, then you're just a terrible person, right?
Well,
Like,
well, that's what kills me because there's so many people out there, and I mean, I've dealt with them over the years that it's either black and white, and that's it. There is no gray area. And at one time, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I really got mad. I was so upset over something that was put on the internet and this whole thing. And I ran into this guy. I ran into the guy at a huge flea market, right? I ran into him literally. And you know what? We started talking, and I said to him, I said, "Listen, I'm going to clear the air. I was mad at you for 4 days." And then I thought to myself, how could I be mad at somebody? What kind of a person would I be if I'm mad because you have an opinion?
yeah,
I have an opinion. All you have is an opinion. You know what? He didn't know what to say. All of a sudden, everything just de-escalated right out. And yeah, okay, you don't believe, I don't care.
yeah.
It doesn't make at the end of the rainbow there, it doesn't make any difference. And
Yeah, I gave up trying to convince anyone of anything decades ago. I mean,
yeah, I
that's not my
agree.
job. That's not what I do. I'm
I agree.
I gather the stories, I put it out there. You let these birds fly into the air and you see how high they go. And some
Exactly.
soar and some just hit the ground and with a thud, and you go, oh, okay, well, that's that. But it's not for me to judge, because I think something I've said over and over is that these stories, these legends, and again, I'm not talking fiction, I'm talking the story that evolves out of a thing.
Right.
They stick around for reasons beyond us, right? It's not
Yes.
up to Tim, it's not up to me. If a story sticks around, it's a community, it's a village that keeps talking about it, probably because something keeps happening. Like if someone saw a ghost in a building 50 years ago and there's been no reports since, nobody's going to talk about that building. It's just literally like math. You know what I mean? It's just something happened
Exactly.
long ago, but no one
Exactly.
talks about it. If it continues to happen, to me, the simplest definition of a haunting is reputation. That's it. That it just why is that building haunted? Well, lots of people talk about it. That's it. That's the end of the story. You can't argue with that. You could say there's no such thing as ghosts. Fine, scream it from a mountain if it makes you feel better. But why does that building have a haunted reputation and the one next door does not?
Hmm.
Because someone's talking about something weird happening in that one.
Why do you think people really grab onto these urban legends and hold them so tight? Because I know myself, I go out there and I interview a lot of people, especially when I'm out, photographing all of these different locations for talks.
Mhm.
Why do you think people really are fascinated by them so much?
Well, so urban legends to me is a different category. Are you talking haunts or urban legends?
I'll be honest with you, I see a crossover. For me personally, I get crossovers because I get some places are the urban legends of, let's say, a pig man,
Yeah.
that actually is based on a train wreck,
Yeah.
and people continuously go, and we'll talk about it. But also, because of a certain something happens, now all of a sudden people are seeing spirits in this particular location. So to
Oh,
me,
sure.
sometimes see, because to me, sometimes they get muddled.
Yeah. No, no, you're right. You know what's funny? Just last night, I was giving a talk in Connecticut at this school, and someone brought up the Pope Lick monster. And the Pope Lick monster is, oh God, Google it for me real quick. If Tennessee, Kentucky, it's the Pope Lick Bridge, which is a train trestle.
Hmm.
And the story goes that years ago, a circus train went off the rails, and this half man, half goat has been lurking in the area ever since. Now, I that's personally beyond my ability to believe, right? Like that's beyond my threshold. And I believe in all kinds of weird stuff, but that's a little further than I'm willing to go for me. However, I recognize that for thousands of years, people have been talking about half human, half animals.
Right.
Mythology, the centaur, the minotaur,
Exactly.
the
Exactly.
mermaid is a half human, half
Yeah.
fish, right? So like the Birdman, like this isn't new, right? This has been around for literally thousands of years. Okay. Anyway, all that aside, the Pope Lick monster, uh, while I don't think we're ever going to capture it, kill it, or put it on display, it is responsible for a human death. Absolutely, absolute fact. What happened was this was probably going on like 15 years ago. Someone walked across the train trestle trying to look down and get a bird's eye view to try to find evidence of this half man, half
Right.
goat, the Pope
Right.
monster, and he fell. And he fell to his death because it is a long, long fall, and he died. And while you can say there's no such thing as the Pope Lick monster, tell that to his family. Tell that to his friends
Right.
who went to the funeral
You're
and
right. You're
said
right.
he died because he believed in it enough to go looking for it. And he had an accident and he perished. And now, of course, well, I mean, ghost stories may follow, right? Like you
Right.
could say, oh, now the area is haunted by a person who literally died looking for this, looking for this thing. And I think that's sort of profound. Even if the original subject sounds silly and ludicrous, well, it's got a little more gravitas to it now, doesn't it?
It definitely does. Here's something that I found over the years, and I want to ask your opinion on it. We'll go into the realm of urban legends, right?
Sure.
When we start talking about urban legends, when you take it at face value originally, when you go and you start recording these things, you start interviewing people, it is amazing. It's like this huge balloon that is just like amazing. It's like you sit there and go, holy crap. And then when you start digging into your research and you start digging into what's going on there, all of a sudden now it starts getting smaller, smaller, and smaller. And it's like peeling open an onion. When you do that, do you find that there is, let's say, just a little snippet of truth that this whole legend built up and around?
Oh, there has to be. If there's no truth, then you'll never share the story. If I told you a story that's so unbelievable to you, and I mean not believable, not wow, I
Right.
mean like, dude, come on, right? If I
Yeah.
was like, Tim, I was in downtown Boston today and I saw the ghost of Elvis and the Loch Ness monster dancing a jig right in front of Faneuil Hall, you'd be like, really? You know what I mean? And you wouldn't believe it. It would
Yeah.
sound stupid. It didn't happen. And most importantly, because it sounds stupid and not believable, you wouldn't tell anyone else. And you wouldn't go there looking for the ghost of Elvis because it doesn't make any sense at all. And that would be the end of it. It would, that bird
Right.
would just fall to the ground
Right.
and die. Um, however, if something sounded believable enough, if you heard some truth in my story, even if you didn't believe all of it, there's a piece of you that would go, oh man, I wonder. I
Mhm.
wonder. And so that wonder is that gray area is where urban legends live. It's where they fester and grow, where one of my favorites is Bloody Mary, right? We
Oh
all
my
know Bloody.
god, yes, yes, yes.
That's why Tim, I had to run before we started and get the mirror, right? So I was like, okay, here's your homework. Take a mirror, right? Uh it's just a mirror and a candle. That's all you need. We all have that at home somewhere. And you hold the candle in front of the mirror and you say Bloody Mary 3
3
times or
times.
10 times or 13 times. Whatever number you heard you're supposed to say it, that's how many you should say it. And the story goes, the backstory is that there was once this beautiful young girl named Mary Worth, and she was horribly disfigured in an accident. And her parents thought she wouldn't be able to stand the sight of her own reflection, so they hid all the mirrors in the house. But one day Mary gets curious and she goes looking, and she finds a mirror and she uncovers it. And she's so appalled by what she sees in her own reflection that she goes into the realm of the mirror and vows to seek revenge on anyone who summons her by saying Bloody Mary 3 times or 10 times or what have you. And while I don't believe someone lives in the realm of the mirror, that story speaks to vanity. It speaks to all of us, worried about our own personal appearance. Are we good looking enough? Are we whatever? And it speaks to this level of fear of what the mirror holds. And then you start thinking like, oh, I've got Jewish friends, and when they have a loved one who dies, they cover all the mirrors.
Yep.
Why? What is it
Yes.
about mirrors? Why is it when you break a mirror there's 7 years bad
Bad
luck?
luck.
Well, at one point there was, the mirrors were highly expensive, so they wanted you to be super careful with this delicate object. So 7 years bad luck might be extra incentive to be careful. And then of course there's narcissists, right, who fall in love with their own reflection. That the mirror is inherently dangerous. You might fall in love with your own reflection. All
Yes.
that swirling in our head. And then I want you to try this at home when you're alone, wherever you live, apartment, house, I don't care, but be alone. No roommates, no spouses, no kids, nothing around, just you and the mirror and a candle. And you hold it up and you light the candle and you look in the mirror and you say, this is stupid. This isn't going to work, obviously. And you go, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. I don't want to do it. It's dumb. This is dumb. I don't have to do it. Right. And that's the funny thing. Right before you say it the third time, right before you're just like, a piece of your
Yes.
brain deep down. We're talking about the primal part, the fight or flight,
Yes.
the way down there in the weeds, right? Goes, what if? What if this thing sticks around because there's some truth to it? And what if some disfigured woman leaps out of the mirror and kills you? And you go, oh, that's ridiculous. That couldn't happen.
Or
Could
it?
it?
Could it?
And Bloody Mary lives another day.
Well, let's face it, we use it uh, in mirror boxes where
Yeah.
paranormal investigators will go into the mirror box. Or in the case of the Hinsdale house in the southern tier of New York State, you have a closet that is claimed to be a portal, which I have my doubts about it, but there is a mirror in there and a chair, and you sit in there and you go and summon or conjure or whatever you want to do. And I'm going to tell you what, all the years I've been doing this stuff, I sat in there and I went and I was summoning using the 3 summons, the 3 words to bring whatever it was through. And I got to tell you what, I got to that 3rd word and I went, and I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm in my heart, I know that nothing's going to happen, but it's that
No,
little bit
in
of
your
fear.
head, you nothing's going to happen.
You're
In
right.
your
You're
heart, you're
right.
not sure.
You're right about
Right?
that. Logically, yeah.
Yeah, logically, you go, nothing's going to happen. But the primal part goes, you might get more. The psychomantium chamber. Did you ever
that's
try
it.
one?
That's it, Kenneth. Yep.
So the psychomantium
Yep.
chamber, Dr. Raymond Moody developed this thing years ago. What he was trying, he wrote the book Life After Life. He's a medical doctor, did all this wonderful work on
Amazing.
near-death experiences.
Yes. Amazing.
And yeah, he's the authority. I got to interview him years ago. Great guy,
Really?
very warm-hearted person. And so what he was trying to do, he had interviewed enough doctors to hear stories about patients saying, well, I was standing in the room when, you were working on me and operating, and then, suddenly I was back in my body. And the doctor, he was able to talk about things. Hey, Brandon, my 11-year-old just brought the Bloody Mary phenomenon home from school unprompted. Yeah, it can't be improved, right, Brandon? It
That's
doesn't
exactly
change.
it.
It's the same.
And just let everybody know who Brandon Hodge is. Brandon Hodge is a world-class collector of not just Ouija boards and all that, but also automatic writing planchets, which were very, very popular in my religion, the spiritualist religion. So, I mean,
Right.
I'm going to go and I'm going to send him a dozen roses and get him on the show just to talk about that. But
Oh,
anyway,
that's sweet. So wait, let's finish the psychomantium though.
yes,
So
yes, yes.
psychomantium, so Raymond Moody was trying to come up with a way to reproduce the near-death experience with, without you having to die or almost die or get in some horrible accident. So, so he came up with the mirror gazing, which goes back before there were mirrors. They used to look in a
Scrying,
bowl of
basic
water.
scrying,
Yeah,
yes,
a
yes.
reflective bowl of water is a mirror. So, it was a mirror. It was very low light, a dark, quiet, comfortable room. You'd be sitting low to the ground. And his idea was to look into the mirror, but not at your own reflection, to sort of look past the plane of the mirror.
Yes.
And the way it was explained to me is, if you remember those in the 80s, they used to have those 3D books where you would stare at it and the image would pop out, because what you were doing, the way that worked, is that you were tricking your own eye into focusing on a focal point beyond the plane of the paper. And
Yes.
once you did that successfully, the 3D image would pop out of the book. That's how it worked. That's just that simple. So same idea, you would focus on a focal point beyond the plane of the mirror and look beyond it. And in that space, you get visions. Now, if you want to take all the paranormal out of it, maybe those visions are coming from within you, which to me not only still has value, probably has more value, whatever may come through. And so I've had the chance to sit in one a couple of times, in various places where they were set up. And give it some time if you get the chance, right? If because the second you sit down, it's a little crazy to think that something's going to happen immediately. You need to calm yourself. You need to get into a calm place, a meditative place, maybe,
Yes. Yes.
and then see what happens. And even if it's just you communicating with you, my goodness, listen, because who should you listen to, beyond yourself? What higher authority is there
Well, that's
than
exactly it.
yourself?
You're contacting your higher self, and a lot of people don't realize that. I I'm a proponent of the human antenna, which is which actually controls the ideomotor response. That kind of pushes the planchette or whatever. But here's the thing: what happens if it isn't your higher self? Such
Yeah.
as in the Philip experiment of 1972 up in Toronto. I mean, there you go, something that corrects something that was created for a thought form, but corrects the history, corrects something that is wrong. Where does that information come from? We had that same experiment basically at one of the churches that I served, and we didn't know that a book had been written, and it corrected, or it correlated, I should say,
Yep.
exactly what we had brought through. So
That's cool.
who's there to say? And the other thing that's great, if anybody ever gets a chance to do it, I logged about 50, not all at one time. Yeah, if it was all at one time, it would explain a lot with me. But I did about 50 hours in a Siddhara sensory isolation tank back in the 80s. And it has a lot of the same effects, except you're not using the scrying technique, you're using a projection technique.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you what, it can be changing, and you have to question a lot of what comes through, because it is amazing. It really is amazing.
Yeah. No, and if nothing else, one of the things I've learned in my own paranormal journey, right, is that I've learned a lot about myself.
Right.
I was raised Catholic, and that's the luggage I will forever carry with me. I can't do anything about that. But I think about all I've learned about myself, about my own sense of spirituality, and the cool thing is I found some answers. Like along the way. They're my answers, though. I mean, I'll be glad to tell you and share, but they won't mean the same. Like, I did the
Right.
work, and I found my own sort of
I
answers to some
agree.
of these things.
I
And
agree.
it's very, very meaningful to me. And I always appreciate meeting people who are on the quest, who are seeking and asking questions and really sort of looking into it. And the discussions you have with people that are on that quest, like, I don't know, there must be some reason all my closest friends are weirdos and seekers, and you know what I mean? Like those are my kindred folk, um, and we talk about the various things. I remember doing the Psychomanium Chamber. It was on a Saturday night, and a group of us were doing it. We were taking turns, and we were moving
Right.
through the thing,
Right.
and talking about it after. And at one point, I was just like, a lot of our friends are probably at a bar Saturday night, like having drinks, maybe listening to music, and look at us. Look at what we're doing on a Saturday night.
Been there.
Yeah.
Been there.
So,
But what's amazing is you get a chance to go and you get that, we call it thought forums, or thought exchanges,
sure,
where we're able to go
yeah.
and we're able to get a chance to be able to, really pick each other's brain and be able to go and find something, and maybe something will spark. Because I was brought up Roman Catholic, and also spiritualist, which is kind of strange, but they do fit together.
Sure.
But the one thing I have to tell you is that if I had been taught Catholicism properly, I probably would never have gone to my father's religion of spiritualism, because the wonderment and the adventure that is contained within the Catholic mysticism is amazing, and so much of it carries over into my religion. So I think what we do basically when you start becoming a seeker is you reestablish that sense of wonderment and adventure that we lost when we grew up. We became logically adults.
So let's hit on, let's bash the Catholics a bit, because I don't know, it's an easy target, low hanging fruit, right? When I was in church as a young person, thinking about anything and everything but church,
right?
Because I was bored. There was magic happening. There was transformative, profound magic happening.
Correct.
But it was resigned to the priest at the altar.
Right.
He got to experience all the magic and do all the magic and conduct all the magic and probably reap all the benefits of the magic, while we just passively watched. I don't know. I'd rather play the sport than sit in the stands. You know what I mean?
No, I agree with you 100%, because I always remember being told the mysticism of the saints, and you would sit there and go, oh my God, they did X, Y, and Z. And then during the summer, when I would go down to the Lilydale Assembly in Western New York, the spiritualist encampment to visit relatives, they were actually doing all this stuff, the hands-on healing and all the, and the prophecy and all this stuff. And I think that's what really sparked that wonderment in me, and why I became who I am now. But
it makes sense, right? Because think about it. So on the one hand, why should I corner spiritualism, not the religion, but spirituality, right? Why should I corner that and say, just follow and listen to me, I will tell you what it's about? Well, what do I know? I know what works for me. I don't know what works for you. I don't know what works for anybody, just myself. And so that was one of the things that I guess always sort of bothered me about. And by the way, there's good things in Catholicism too, for sure.
Basically, yes.
Yeah, there's community, and there's stuff that they do for charity, and there's stuff that's I think in some ways that they get bashed a lot for treatment of women, and I get it, and it's probably well deserved in most places, but there is a sense of the sacred feminine in Mary and in saints that is lacking in other Christian beliefs, right?
I agree.
There isn't a sacred feminine like there is in Catholicism. So there's certain things where you're like, well, that's pretty cool, and at the same time, like, how could we expect any religion to have all the answers? Religion is created by man, and it is fallible and flawed, and deeply flawed. But spirituality is bigger than that. And that's
it was created to be a control mechanism. That's all it really was. It was, and actually, as time went on, it became a political control mechanism.
Yeah,
and
land
that is
property, and
exactly. Look at what happened with the Knights Templar. I mean, this is something that people don't realize.
So people, like, one of the simplest things, the reason priests couldn't marry It had nothing to do with celibacy or anything else. It was if they could marry and have children, the children would inherit the land that the church owned.
Yes.
And you
Correct.
and
Correct.
so if you keep them from marrying and having offspring, you get to own all the land, and that makes you rich and powerful. Um, but that's a human trait, right? That's not,
Right.
you know,
Right. But,
I don't know.
again, I mean, I've done a lot of research in comparative religions, and I have to say that if you break down the majority of religions, man-made religions and organizations, it all breaks down to a few common denominators,
Yeah,
and that's what you got to look for, and that's what I always look for.
sure.
And that's why I always say that, after I'll go into a little diatribe about the Catholic religion, because yours truly had to go to church almost 5 to 7 days a week.
Oh, you
It
poor
that
thing.
Oh
I'll
yeah.
say a novena for you.
No, and if there were novenas, you had to go at night. So not
Ah,
only did not and a holy day of obligation on Saturday meant that you had to go 5 days a week before class Saturday, and then sit with the class on Sunday, and then you had novenas 3 days a week. So you were actually in church twice, 3 days a week. So that's my tale of woe.
dude, just bring back the day where they sold indulgences. How much? You know what I mean?
Really, really. Listen.
Save
For a
me a
thousand
time.
for $1,000, I'm good for the year. Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh, that's an easy check to write. You know, for sure. I
Yeah,
get it. I get it.
that's
Yeah.
funny.
No, no, I totally get it.
That is
But
so funny.
out of that, and the other thing too, being raised Catholic probably made me more open, I think, to ghosts and hauntings, because
Yes,
I've always said like Catholicism offered us a whole spectrum, right, between God and the devil, angels, demons,
correct,
saints,
correct.
sinners, and then purgatory. What in the world is purgatory? It's made up. It's invented, right? It's made up because there was a time when they were preaching only the top 1% of the top 1% has a shot at heaven, and most of us are like, I'm just not that good. And as the great philosopher Sam Kinison once said, if you're going to miss heaven, don't miss it by an inch. Right?
You're
Imagine
right
you get
about
there,
that.
you get there, you get to the pearly gates, and there's St. Peter, and he's just like, oh, Tim, you ate meat this one Friday during Lent. Ah,
Dear
sorry,
Lord,
buddy.
dear
You were that
Lord.
close. He'd be like, well, if I could go back now, oh, the things I would have done. So, anyway, don't miss it by an inch.
Don't miss it by an inch. It's true. And Sam Kinison, he was an amazing preacher. I've seen
Yeah,
the
he was a
reels with
preacher.
him.
That's how he started.
Yeah,
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 he was a preacher. He fired a gun in church once.
yeah, yeah. When I
Yeah,
grow
well,
up,
cocaine's a hell of a drug.
yeah, yeah. Well, back in disco, it wasn't illegal, and it wasn't addicting, but that was just disco. But
Right.
that you're too young for that. You're
Yeah,
still
I
too young.
am. Way too young.
I was alive back then. Anyway, I loved the direction that this talk actually took off on.
What were we supposed to talk about
We were
tonight?
going
I
to
don't
talk
even
about urban
remember.
legends, but this is
Oh
just
yeah.
this is
Well, I
just
brought
as
my
good.
mirror. We got Bloody Mary out of the
Well,
way.
that's good. That's all we need. That's all we need. You know.
Bloody Mary.
You know what I wanted to ask you, getting us back, reeling us back in.
Sure.
Uh Over the years, I've gone, I mean, you and I travel all over the place. Over the years, I have seen, I should say, I have heard the same type of legends, except in different places.
Yep.
Is this common? Is this something that may be like a morality play, to protect your virgin stock, or, not get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger that's developed onto here? Or is it just something that may have been like culturally induced?
So that's intriguing to me. I live in Eastern Massachusetts. Watch your mouth, Peg. Good. Oh, folklore. I thought that was one of the new swears the kids are saying.
Those
So
darn kids.
those kids today. So I live in Eastern Massachusetts, just south of Boston, and there's a Wampanoag legend of the Pukwudgie. Right, the
Yes.
Pukwudgie is a miniature human type creature that can turn itself into a ball of light, guide you to safety, or guide you off a cliff and kill you. Depends on their mood. They're neither good nor bad, but they could do horrible things. Um, and that legend had been around and passed down for
Right. Right.
generations. It is nearly identical to some of the Fey folk in Ireland. It's
Yes.
nearly identical to the Little People legend of the Inuit of Alaska. and it's nearly identical to some legends in Africa. And so on the one hand, you can say, how in the world did the same story pop up all over the world with cultures that we were told had no contact with each other at all?
Correct.
Right?
You're
Like
right.
the
You're
Inuit
right.
weren't hanging out with Africans, like never, right? And so either everyone made up the same story, which is still right, mind
Yes.
blowing,
Yes.
or there's something to it, and everybody's doing their best, right? Language is limited. Every language in the world is limited. We do our best to express what we see and think and feel, but we will always fall short of perfectly expressing that. It's impossible to do. The really great communicators get closer than the rest of us, but all
Mhm.
we can do is
Mhm.
try using our limited language to explain something. But the story endures. So
Yes.
that's like the little person, legend. However, think about things like Gravity Hills, right? So Gravity Hill
I
is
love
a
those.
story. The best we could tell originated around Austin, Texas, right? And there's a train track, and the story goes: if you stop your car and put it in neutral right before the train track, put talcum powder on the trunk, and then put your car in neutral, it will seemingly be pushed uphill over and past the train track to safety. And then when you get out of the car, look at your trunk, you're going to see hundreds of little fingerprints
Yep.
because ghostly children just pushed your car to safety because at one point a school bus full of kids was hit by a train. They all died, and they're now there to help any kid that any car that gets stuck on those tracks. There are 2 Gravity Hills in Massachusetts. I know of one in New Jersey. There may be more. I just know of one.
There's one in New York State too. I was
Yeah,
just that.
it
I was just
shows
there
up
last year.
all over the place.
Yes. Yes.
And by the way, I've researched the 2 in Massachusetts and the one in Texas. There's no record of an accident. A school bus getting hit by a train full of kids, that's something you would literally just know. You know what I mean? Like we would all be like, "Oh yeah, in the '60s, those poor
Yeah, I
kids, right?"
remember even the 1800s to be like, "Oh yeah, that's common knowledge."
Yeah, like you would just know it. So it didn't
Yeah.
happen, but it's a plausible backstory, and legends, urban legends too, especially, there's an inherent moral to them. And so on the one hand, the moral is be careful on train tracks. You could be killed. That is,
Yes.
people do
Yes.
get killed on train tracks. People do get their cars stuck. It does happen. Be careful. And when you're driving down the highway late at night, like we do all the time, you do a talk far away, you're driving
Yep.
home late, you're tired, you're getting sleepy at the wheel, which is dangerous.
Yes.
And then you're on
Yes.
the highway and you see a cross on the side of the road where someone died, and someone put a little monument across, maybe some flowers up to where their loved one lost their life, doing exactly what you're
You're
doing right
doing.
now. Just driving along and trying to get home. And you see that cross and you start going, whoa, put the window down, put the music
Yep.
up,
Yep.
wake up, come on now, right? Like, I don't want to be the next cross to be there for me. And that story, that inherent moral carries with you again and again and again. Sorry, Brandon posted something, and to finish the story about the talcum powder on the trunk, it works. You can do it right now. Go put talcum powder on your car in your driveway, and in a few minutes, you're going to see fingerprints. They're yours, right? Every time you close the trunk, you're putting your fingerprints on it. So
Yep.
yes, that
Yep.
is correct
It's
indeed.
it's
So,
it's
but you
definitely
freak out.
it's a CSI. It's a CSI technique.
Yeah,
I remember. Listen, I watch TV once in a while, so that's where I got that from.
sure. That makes you smart.
That doesn't make me smart. Believe me. Talking to you makes me smart.
Oh, come on. But so like all these stories, there's always an inherent moral in any
Yes.
legend.
Yes.
Because back to haunts, right? Lizzie Borden house, sort of near me in Fall River,
Right.
Massachusetts. 2 people were murdered. No one was punished for it. That's a fact. That haunts us. We sit there and we go, ugh, don't like that. Someone got away with a double murder. Man, oh man, that will haunt us forever. Gettysburg.
Agreed. Yes.
Gettysburg haunts us and should haunt us forever. We talk about how politically divided the nation is right now. We're so divided, rah, right? And I just picture, like, let's all go to Gettysburg, not at once, there's not enough room, but like we all go to Gettysburg, and then all the ghosts of the 40,000 dead, missing, or wounded who died in 3 days in 1863, right? They rise from the ground and they look at all of us angry Americans and they go, "Oh, America's divided? Tell us about that, you poor things. You're fighting on the internet? Oh,
Oh,
honey, you need a
yeah,
hug?"
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
that's not what divided looks like. This, Gettysburg, that's what divided looks like. That's what a divided nation looks like. Let that haunt us forever. If you find yourself leaning way to one side of the political spectrum, please get yourself to Gettysburg at some point. Tour the battlefields, walk around at night, breathe it in, and say, "Oh, you know what? Maybe our problems just aren't that bad."
You're right about that. You're right. You're so right about that. And you start seeing, well, as you can see what I'm surrounded by. You know,
Yeah,
I'm
there
always
they
going
are.
to Gettysburg, and people don't realize that. Yes, we are not at that point yet. We are not even
No.
close to that point yet. Thank
Yeah.
God. But these are people that fought each other, and you got to remember. I mean, these were not just a divided nation, but divided families, and people kill each other. There are guys that walked from Florida to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. People from Maine walked there, or they took a train somewhere and then walked in. You know, guys that went on 36-hour marches to get there. You know,
Yep.
and just to get mowed down. So you start thinking about that, and you start talking about the human total. What happened? Not close.
Yeah.
Not close
No,
yet.
we're not
Not
there. But
close.
and we got to get over ourselves. We got to all just take a breath here and go, "Come on." Like we have way more in common than we don't.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
it's but this gets back to us not wanting to live in gray area. No, you've got to be this or you got to be that. You got to
Yes,
be that. And I'm like,
exactly.
if you can just embrace the gray area, uh you'll just be happier. You'll be a more rounded person.
Agreed.
And just understand we're not going to know everything. You can't know everything. You can't see every angle. But we are all people, as Dickens called us, right? We're all fellow travelers to the grave. Even
Yes,
if we don't always remember it, we should. That we're all on the same train and we're all going to the same destination. It's just some are going to get there sooner than others.
exactly. But once you put it, you have to put it in perspective. And unfortunately, right now, we are dealing with so much myopic thought. You know, the
Yeah.
blinders are on, and I'm only looking ahead. I can't look at anything else. Jeff, we're running out of time already because you are just like the guest extraordinaire. I mean, you are like, I'm going to tell you what, you are like the fast food of heavy thought. I like that. That's what I'm calling you, the fast food of heavy thought. Tell everybody what's going on and where are you going to be, projects, and and I really hope that we get a chance to see each other before Sault Ste. Marie in August.
August. Yeah.
But if not, and the other thing is I'm driving, so I'm not going to be snuggling up to you 28 hours sleeping between you and John Zaffis anywhere.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, hopefully we're not sleeping on the floor of the airport. Yeah, no, that was awful.
That was
Um,
awful.
that was really awful. Yeah, I mean, whatever. I mean, some people are homeless, so I guess us sleeping one night on an airport floor is could
It's
be
not
could be
bad.
worse.
It's not bad.
Could be worse. So yeah, no, you can go to my website, jeffbelanger.com is where you can find out everything about me. Follow me on social media on Facebook, Twitter, or or Instagram. I've got various talks and events coming up throughout the year. My podcast is New England Legends. That's every Thursday with a new episode. Wherever you get your podcast, it's free. And we explore weirdness throughout New England, ghosts, monsters, strange history, stuff like that. But no, just to always working on something, and then still working on Ghost Adventures, which is still filming. 16 years been working on that
It's
show,
amazing.
and
Amazing.
yeah, still
But
going. So it's
but hey, but hey, you are Jeff Belanger.
I
They built that show around you. Don't let anybody else kid you. It's you. That's all you.
Well, there's a lot of people involved, but it's been pretty cool to be part of it. And I remember when it started, it was just supposed to be 8 episodes, and here we are 16 years later. 16 years later.
Amazing, isn't it?
16. Like that's
Well,
I mean, how many TV shows go 16 years? Very few.
what's
Some a couple, right?
I
Simpsons.
mean, usually I think the lifespan of any TV show is about 2 years, 3 years.
Maybe.
Reality shows, if you get 2 years out of a reality show, you've
Yeah.
done really well. What you guys have done and what you guys have built is monumental, and it's just like it's incredible. It's just
It's
incredible.
really it's wild to have seen it. And you know, I meet people now and they're like, "Oh, I used to watch Ghost Adventures when I was a kid." And I'm like, "I worked on it when you were a kid."
when you, you know what? My favorite compliment was somebody said to me, you know, I saw when you were on Ghost, I saw a rerun of you on Ghost Lab. And first of all, you used the
Oh
word
yeah.
rerun, which like I just started laughing about. I said, "Well, how old were you when you saw it?" He says, "I think I was like 8 when I first saw it." I'm like, "Jeff, that's hey, but you know what? It's a compliment."
Sure.
And you know what? I got to say that out of I would say out of the majority of the people that I know that are out there working and traveling and hitting the circuit, you've actually have had the most profound impact, I would say, on the field today. We're not talking gadgetry. We're not talking all that lights and pretty stuff and beeps. We're talking about philosophically and spiritually, because you have actually gone and brought some really wonderful, wonderful takes to the common people. And I
Well,
think that, I'm not going to, and by saying common people, I'm not putting anybody down. It just means that you are able to go and reach everyone at every strata. And I think that is just a testament to your skill and to your talent.
well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. And it's been, I mean, you know, I just I'm on the journey like everybody else. And you know how it is, especially like at the big events like Sault Ste. Marie, when you get to like have a beer and talk to people, and
Yes,
you know, you get to talk to folks and hear all the stuff they're doing and all of their experiences.
I
You
live
know,
for
it's
that. I do live for that.
you grow as a person, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh right, this is, I mean, you just learn so much. So I'm grateful to be in this with everybody. You know, it's I've joked, and this has been true for years, truly. You know, like I go to my daughter's track meets and I talk to the other school parents or whatever. I always feel awkward. I feel so awkward and out of place. But like at a paranormal event or someplace haunted or weird or
Fit
whatever,
right in.
these are my people. I'm home. You know what I mean? Like everything's fine now. I don't have to worry about anything.
Just
You
like
know? And
this, all warm and fuzzy.
yeah, totally. You're just like, finally, I'm okay. Put the old hair down and you know,
And you
cut
know
loose
what?
a
I
little
have
bit.
gotten more friends, and that's what I don't have fans. I mean, I do have friends, and I mean, I've gotten more friends out of doing these events and
Oh yeah.
out of the paranormal community than I would have had anywhere else. And I think that what we do, you and I collectively, and everybody else that's involved in it, it's for us. It is such a balm in what we, in this crazy world that we do, and it makes it worthwhile. It's to be able to go out there and make friends.
Yeah,
how
for
how
sure.
could how can you ask for anything more than that?
Yeah, you know, let's end on this note. I went to a funeral this past Friday.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Wake. It was a wake. The
Yeah.
service was the wake service, and this is a guy I used to coach soccer with 20 years ago. Like 20 years ago, we coached soccer and coached for a few years together. And he had 3 kids, and he coached everything. He coached basketball. He coached soccer. He was kind of never not coaching. And I went to the wake. It was from like 4 to 8 this past Friday night, and I walked up and the line was out the door and down the street. And I waited and I saw people that I hadn't seen in years, you know, and we caught up a little bit and we waited and we moved through, and the line didn't get shorter. It's just some of us got through and others kept filling in. And as was talking to his family and his daughters at the end, I remember just saying like, this is what a really rich person looks like at the end.
Exactly. I
This
agree.
is this
I
is
so
this is
agree.
rich. This is true wealth. And I hope you can take a moment and go look out the door and look down the street and just see how wealthy your father was. And we can only hope for a crowded funeral.
I figure like this. I'll pay for 6 people. There'll be free beer and pizza outside. I'll get somebody to come.
Yeah, I want a keg sticking out of my casket and you just help yourself as you come by and pay your respects, or don't pay your
Sounds good.
respects.
Hey, you know what?
Whatever.
I got one more question for you. One
Go ahead.
question I always like to go, and I like to reserve this question for friends, for people who I respect. We're always out there, guys like you and I are always out there lurking in cemeteries. We're reading epitaphs, we're reading dates, we're constantly out there. What do you want as an epitaph on your tombstone?
Oh, you'd think I'd have an answer ready. How about knock once for yes?
I like that. I like that. I do. That's
Get off of
fantastic.
me. Now
Yeah.
I feel like a schmuck. Ah, God, I could go on and on. Too many good ones. But you know what? I should put that in my will now, just in case something happens untimely. I want it to be funny and memorable, because if there's one thing I've learned, we do these things, we call them cemetery safaris, where you just find the weirdest, funniest, craziest
Yes.
headstones.
Yes.
The craziest headstones get talked about for centuries, right? Like if it's just "Here lies Tim
Yeah.
Shaw, rest in peace," if it says, persecuted for wearing a beard, you know what I mean? You go, what?
Yeah. Oh, what is that? Yeah, exactly. You
Yeah,
know, we have one up here that says, for $40 and paying Erie County taxes, you could be buried here. I mean,
yeah,
that's on a stone. Those are great things, and people still to this day. I've known it for at least 50 years, and people to this day still go and see that, and
I saw
that's
one.
great.
There was one. It was great. It was a woman gave her buttermilk biscuit recipe on the headstone.
Oh, those are great, aren't
I'm like,
they?
this is fantastic. This
Yeah.
is like and you see that and you're like, well, shoot, I got to take a picture of this, and now I got to make it, because
Yeah.
when a dead person tells you to make biscuits, well, you better make them.
That's right. You don't want them to come visit later on. I mean,
No, you're
that's
like, oh
exactly
well,
what
now I'm making that. That's happening.
Jeff,
Anyway, good
Jeff,
stuff.
thank you so much for being a guest on the show. Everybody loves you. I mean, I personally am enriched knowing that you're a friend of mine, even though, every so often I get like texts that F you from you, just because you're a good guy. You know what I mean? That's true love. That just means it's
That's
true
how I
love.
say I love you
Yeah, I
with
know it
expletives.
is. Stay on the line so I can thank you properly, and I'm heading off. Thank you again. You've
All
been
right.
really, this has been beyond illuminating,
Well, shucks. Thanks.
whether you like it or not.
Hey, when do we go live? Is this was the pre-show, right?
Yeah, that's just a pre-show. Don't worry about
Okay,
it.
good. Well, let's go
And,
live and let's do
and
this.
it goes in the checks in the mail. I'll be right back.
I'll get serious and let's really talk.
Yeah, okay, Jeff. Yeah, I believe that. That's Jeff Belanger, guys. He's amazing, and I am so blessed to count him as a friend. And I just, you know what? I love seeing him because even on the worst day, whenever some of these events that we've done in the past are sometimes can be questionable, but even on my worst day, this guy always has a smile on his face, and he's infectious, and he makes me feel good. And that's what's so great about it. So, guys, we'll see you next week here at the Black Cat Lounge. Where else are we going to be? It's really elite meat next to the dumpster transfer station. Ciao, babies. Take care. We'll see you next week.